is going to be. As soon as I understand what that size is, then we will redistribute and reallocate the civilian workforce as necessary.
Thank you. Thank you all for your service.
Thank you, Senator Gillibrand. Senator Budd, you are recognized, and you have the gavel for 5 minutes.
Understood. Thank you, sir. Again, thank you all for being here. I want to thank you in particular for your leadership, General Allvin, with communicating the need for more Air Force. It's something that I support and something that I agree with. You know, last month we received the Air Force's report to Congress, which lays out the plan to sustain and recapitalize the fighter fleet. The plan goes out, as you know, to 2035, and it hinges on production and procurement assumptions over the next 10 years in order to work. So in that sense, how important are the fighter production lines and stable funding to those lines in your effort to modernize the fleet?
You nailed it, Senator Budd. They're absolutely critical. That stable funding helps us not only understand how to develop the pilot pipeline, but where they're going to be stationed, the whole thing. It's critical.
So one thing that stuck out to me was the arrival of the F-35s at Lakenheath Air Base, and that once they're up and running, 2 Strike Eagle units will be returning stateside. So has a decision been made on where those aircraft will end up?
Senator, the final decision hasn't been made, but I will tell you that when we're looking at the right place to have them land, we are looking at, because those have the newer 229 engines in them, and so they're the more modern.
Versus the 220 engines.
Versus the 220 engines, and so understanding Seymour Johnson has the 220s, we're looking very closely at the opportunity because, of course, Seymour Johnson is going to be critical to the F-15E and EX community as far as the training unit and the operational unit for the E. So that certainly is it's an attractive landing spot right now. We haven't made that final decision, but it's pretty attractive.
General, as you know, Seymour Johnson, which you mentioned, it hosts both combat and training missions, and it's home to the oldest Strike Eagles in the fleet. So does the return of those Lakenheath jets, does it create flexibility for managing the F-15 fleet and keeping those missions alive?
It absolutely does, Senator. It does.
So if you were able to divest those oldest jets, those Dash 220 jets at Seymour Johnson, unencumbered by the current law, and replace them with newer ones, does that make it easier to sustain both the combat and the training missions at Seymour Johnson?
That absolutely does. It does, Senator.
Thank you. Now, I want to be supportive, and if there's common sense decisions that are held up by technicalities or factors outside of your control, I want to hear about it, and I'm willing to work with all of you on that.
Thank you, sir.
Secretary Mink, again, congratulations on your new role, your swearing in. So what can you tell us about the plan to re-optimize the Air Force for great power competition?
So I think it's kind of, as I mentioned in my opening comments, I think there's 2 things we have to look at. Is, we have to look at the near term Indo-Pacific theater and what we need to do there. And we've talked a little bit about that from a readiness perspective, how we're flowing more capability out there and dispersing that capability. I think in the near term, that is something we have to worry about. At the same time, the various modernization efforts we have going on across the service to be able to push deeper in there as China fields more and more capability. I think we talk a lot about modernization, but one of the things can maybe talk a little bit more about in this meeting is that in some cases, particularly in the Space Force, it's not just modernization, it's creation, right? It's new mission that we're not just modernizing. These are new missions that did not exist 4 or 5 years ago, right? So we're creating new missions, and that has to be done because of those capabilities, those new missions are going to be critical, both in the Golden Dome for America, but also in the competition with China and other potential adversaries. So it's a mix of both of those things. It's maintaining readiness now. It's making sure our modernization and the creation missions we're creating are on schedule and deliver, and that's going to be a focus of mine. It's just execution. Have to execute to get those systems online.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. General Allvin, back to you. I'm interested in the deployable combat wing concept. It makes a lot of sense for a wing to train as a unit and then be able to deploy and fight together as a unit if called upon. As one of the first deployable combat wings, I'm particularly interested in what this means for Seymour Johnson. So will additional airmen need to be stationed there to support this concept?
Yeah, Senator, they will, because when we do that, when we ensure we have sequestered those to train as units to go and train how they may have to fight, we still need to ensure that the base is still taken care of. So we anticipate about 200 or folks or so more airmen coming in, and we have done sort of an advanced team to go and look and to ensure that everything is taken care of with the ability to house and feed and do all that sort of things with those additional airmen. I got to tell you, when we put out the call for airmen to volunteer to go to these deployable combat wings, we flooded the zone. There was a lot of airmen who are very excited about this concept, see themselves, rather than deploying as individuals, training as units and deploying as units. And I think Seymour Johnson is going to be the great recipient of that, and as sort of leading the charge for how the Air Force is going to do going forward. We're very excited.
Thank you, General. Chairman.
Yes, before I